started my CI career in 2003. I was still in school, did a lot of research on competitive intelligence in biotech and in pharma. And we published 2 papers. And at the time, CI was still somewhat new to the industry. And everybody was talking about the CI process. Everybody was trying to educate the stakeholders within the organization what is competitive intelligence. And what we have seen over the years is that a lot of the companies are still talking about how we do competitive intelligence. The problem with that is that especially in big pharma, the stakeholders know what competitive intelligence is. So if they're talking about the process, how unique you are, then usually that doesn't really convert into additional projects. What we're trying to say here is that the CI process, the conversation around the CI process is that talking about the activities, talking about the deliverable, doesn't really allow you to have a bigger impact in the organization. Same as in technology, the good news is that as old technology gets replaced, there's new technology that comes into place. With CI, we are seeing that the CI process now is dead, and we need to start talking about what is the value model of competitive intelligence. Here's a simplistic view of a value model. The first step is the why, the second is the how, and the third one is the what. There's a great YouTube presentation by Simon Sinek that talks a little bit about this and gives you different ways on how to think about it. So what we're going to try to show you today is that as you move forward after this conference, you start thinking about what is your value model for competitive intelligence. So the goal for this presentation is that if you're new to competitive intelligence, this will serve as a roadmap for you to learn about how CI has an impact within the organization. If you're an experienced CI professional, we hope that at least 1 or 2 ideas will really elevate the way you do competitive intelligence. The agenda will give you a little bit of the backstory on how we came up with this model. We'll give you some practical tips on how you can start implementing it right away within your organization. And then at the end, I'll share with you how can you learn more about this new approach. What makes this presentation unique, I'm here with Sabi. Sabi will be joining me to present part of the presentation. We've been working together for the last 15 years. I was the head of competitive intelligence for Novartis, built a team from 4 people to 20 plus people. I was the head of competitive intelligence for Roche, built a team from 9 people to almost 30 people, integrated the US CI team, we had about 60 people within Roche doing competitive intelligence. And a lot of the focus was blockbuster products and potentially blockbuster products. As you can imagine, we've done a lot of things the right way, but we did a lot of mistakes along the way. Our goal is to tell you what works and hopefully avoid some of those mistakes. Talked about starting with the CI process. That allowed me then to join HealthIQ, which was a CI agency focused primarily in doing competitive intelligence, learn about primary intelligence, how is that used to drive competitive advantage. Was fortunate enough to work already at that time with blockbuster products. We're supporting RNS for Amgen. They had a budget of almost $2 million just to do primary. And for those people that worked in anemia, I think there was only 3 competitors at the time. So a lot of money was being spent and a lot of intelligence being done at the country level, regional level, at the global level. So that kind of sparked my idea that I wanted to work with a company that has several blockbuster products. And that's how I ended up in Novartis. And joining pharma, for me, was really, okay, we're providing all this information. How is that being used internally? I joined the CVM franchise. Diovan at the time was the biggest product that Novartis had. And because it was such a big, important product, it had a patent exclusivity coming up within 4 years. So there was a lot of interest from senior management. So working with the CEO office, the strategy teams, the BU heads, and then supporting every single function within the organization was interested to get the intelligence that was being generated by the team. So again, I got to see exactly how intelligence, not just for the brand team or for the medical team, but intelligence can be used throughout the organization. Then I got promoted to global head and director within 18 months, and then I had a bigger portfolio to look after, and we started looking at what is the CI process and what is the value that CI can provide across the life cycle of the product. So again, this is just a sample slide, but then again, if the product has potential blockbuster status, then the organization will put significant investment behind it. I was new. I only had a few years of competitive intelligence experience, so I just want to take this opportunity to give thanks to a few people. Jamie from Prescient, He taught us how do you expand the value throughout the early stage of an asset all the way to the later stage. Jonas from Dialis, Neil Hansen from Align Strategy, Ben Gillett. We did a lot of workshops with them, so really understanding how you leverage wargaming to drive value within the teams, but also how to develop wargaming at a global, then a regional, and then developing the toolkits that can be rolled out to the CPOs. Baljit, as you see, he's an expert on generics and biosimilars. He used to work for a generics company. So again, a lot of learnings from him. He then joined Novartis to work with us. Mark and Heath for a lot of primary intelligence. Mark from Innovis, Heath from Sedulo. And then we did a lot of counterintelligence workshop with them, which were very innovative at the time within Novartis, and also Rafat, which has been a constant present here at the Pharma CI Conference. So after about 3.5 years being Novartis, we won a bunch of awards. I got invited to have lunch with Joe Jimenez, which was the CEO of Novartis Group. I had several meetings with David Epstein to really see how we could support the organization. And I would say when we think about the value model, this is where we did the first piece, which is really how do you build a predictive intelligence muscle within the organization. So I want you to imagine that if you have the right partners, right, and if you're working in pharma, then that means you have the right providers, that you have such a big impact that the CEO of an organization like Novartis has 100,000 employees wants to have lunch with you because they want to know exactly how the magic of CI works. Novartis was great, and that opened the opportunity then to join Roche, where the task there was to restructure the organization because Roche was entering a period where there's going to be a lot of competition entering for the cure products, but also they're going to be facing biosimilar competition. So let Sabi present this part.
All right, thank you, Sal. I hope everybody can hear me, so welcome everybody. My name is Sabi Beck, and nice overview, Sal. So I want to share two stories with you. The first story I want to start with is when I joined Roche in 2015. I'd worked with Sal for many years before, so we knew exactly how to work and how we were able to be successful in Novartis. And coming to Roche was a completely different challenge. So as most of you know, they have a huge portfolio of products. Most of them were at the time, so this was 2016, I believe. Most of the products were blockbusters. They had about 30 billion in sales. There was a lot of biosimilar competition coming, but also a lot of innovator competition. So this is an organization that was not really prepared to deal with competition. So they had a good CI function, but really what they needed was to restructure the organization to be better prepared for the competition. And so some of the challenges that the company was facing was when you have so many products, as you heard from Sal, the team expanded to about 50 CI managers with a $20 million CI budget. So you can imagine you get a lot of CI reports, a lot of data, and what happens is that at senior management level, it gets confusing about what's really important, what needs to be acted upon, and making sure that the right people are acting upon it. So our job was really to take what we learned in Novartis, execute it really quickly within Roche. So this predictive intelligence really, that's basically the foundation of CI, is understanding what's out there, doing the analysis, the implications, the recommendations. But that on its own is not enough. You really need to make sure you align the organization around a competitive readiness process. And the reason that's important is because you have so many different stakeholders, so you want to avoid confusion at the top. So I'm not going to go into details on this one, but this is basically the bread and butter, the table stakes essentially. So one of the main issues is really with senior management is knowing what the priorities are, what are really the biggest threats at the product level, at the portfolio level, but then I can really compare across the organization what's the biggest impact to the business. And then this really helped inform the teams where to take the action. But another real benefit of doing these competitive threat assessments, it actually drastically reduces the amount of news flow, the number of alerts, because everybody agrees by doing this workshop about what the threats are with all the experts in the company, what's really important. So, you don't send out a ton of alerts anymore, only if something really important changes in terms of your assumptions around the priority threats. And then that really kind of helps you understand and level set within the organization all the way at senior management what's important there. But it doesn't give you the action. So obviously everybody's familiar with doing workshops, but you actually need a process or a framework of knowing the type of workshops you need to do and when. So when a phase 2 data reads out, so depending on the life cycle and the type of event, you need to know what type of workshop it is. Is it sort of more tactical? Is it a strategic type of workshop? Scenario planning. So it really enabled us to be effective there. And then in hematology, we had 10 assets across 10 different indications. So within 2 years, we needed to do a lot of different workshops to get everybody up to speed, have all the action plans in place at the franchise level. So that really served as a foundation then to not only have a competitive readiness process at the product level or at the portfolio level, but Sal was also working with the executive leadership team to develop a competitive mindset and framework across the organization. So really the mindset of the whole organization. And as I was saying earlier, the company was not really used to dealing with that much competition. So that enabled to really identify that this competitive readiness is a critical step in being able to elevate the CI from just doing the predictive intelligence to having a more meaningful impact in terms of influencing decisions and influencing the strategy, which is ultimately what we all want to do. So our team won several awards there as well within Roche. So what I want you to think about is imagine how you would feel if you're indispensable to the executive leadership team at an organizational level. So not just at the product level, but now you're really able to elevate it to an organizational level. And then the second story I'll quickly go through is when I started with Atacana. So and I've already talked about starting an agency. We've helped a lot of teams, a lot of brands with competitive intelligence. So we wanted to be able to help more people by starting an agency. So Sal started in 2016. I got a phone call to ask him to join a bit early than I had planned because Tarciana was expecting a baby. So I left 3 months later. We pretty much accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish within Novartis, within Roche. And so we've had a really exciting journey. So why is this important to the other component of the value model? As you're growing really quickly, there's 2 issues that you're facing. So one of them, so by 2020 we had over 20 people on the team. So one of the issues is scalability, consistency, but also around selling, right? So if you're in pharma, and how many of you are on the pharma side? Okay, so I'm assuming most of you have to get a budget to be able to do the work, and not everybody loves selling either. So what we identified was that selling is not everybody's favorite thing. If the company is growing, how can you make sure that your team members deliver consistent results with your clients, but also that we can help you guys that are working on the pharma side have the right conversations with your stakeholders, that you don't have to sell, but that you're constantly adding value by asking the right questions so that you actually free up budget and be able to do a lot more with your time. What we had to do was find a solution, so we worked with different consultants to sort of really brainstorm about a simple framework that we can use not only with our company to deliver consistent results, but that can also be used with our clients, with our CI managers, to be able to use this with their managers or their leadership team or their franchise to have more impact. And the key thing around the stakeholder engagement is not just reacting to the questions, but it's really figuring out what the goals and the issues are, not only from the person you're working with, but also from the expanded team. What are your manager's goals and issues? So this really allows you to dig a lot deeper and be able to help more than just the basic request. So as soon as we tried this out with one of our clients, within 1 week, he used this with his manager, then they used it within their brand team. They didn't have the budget, but because they're able to approach this with their leadership team, they were able to free up $200,000 to be able to do this competitive readiness workshops. So, this is one example, but, I want you to imagine that if you're stressed out about selling and getting budget from your stakeholders, imagine how it would feel if you have a very simple, structured conversation where you don't have to have the pressure to sell, but you get an additional 200K. Imagine what you can do with that, the additional support you can get, the time it would free up from doing all the research and analysis, and really focus on the influencing and decision making.
We're starting to build the value framework, so we talk about 3 hows. I'll say the predictive intelligence, the competitive readiness, And then how do you need to talk to the stakeholders the way they understand the value of CI and how you can position yourself as somebody valuable within the organization. What I'll share with you now is 3 secrets. One, what we learn working in a large organization is that there's some people that want a lot of information, but they don't have the budget, or they just want it because they need to know. So the first thing that we need to learn to do is how do we filter out who's really worth spending time and effort. The second one is, again, how do you get started with this framework in an easy way, and then how you can use it also to increase business impact. So to prioritize the stakeholders, there are really 4 areas. The first one is what we call the spectators. They don't know how to play, they're spectators. A lot of times this might be business development, they're looking to get into a new therapeutic area. The second one is what we call the participants. Those are the brand teams that are always reactive, always freaking out, they don't have a system in place, and they're not doing very well in the marketplace. The third bucket is what we call the leaders. They're proactive, they have a CI process in place, and for a lot of companies, that's good enough. But then what we have here at the top is what we call the winners. They have a disciplined approach on not only doing the intelligence, but also taking action on that intelligence. So one of the things that we always try to talk to our stakeholders, really understanding not only where they are, but are they trying to move up the ladder? So if your team is trying to become a winner, then you know that somebody that is going to provide the right resources and provide the right amount of time to be spending with you. And to give an example, what a winner looks like is Ocrevus. This is the Roche multiple sclerosis product. When we joined, there were, I would say, participants. They were a little bit reactive. We came in, we set up the CI process, the predictive intelligence, allocated a full-time person just for that product. I got a lot of pushback from the development team because I was putting a full resource just in one product versus the one to use that resource across multiple indications. But we decided to keep it there. We got senior management support to do that. We set up all the steps that Sabi talked about. And the first year that Ocrevus launched, they were a winner, right? They hit $1 billion in sales, $1 billion in sales in the first year. Because again, there was a lot of work that was done leading up to it. And this is kind of like what we need to be thinking about is, do you have the right processes, the right value model that allows you to bring a participant to a winner level product? So then how to get started with minimal effort. We know there's a lot of data, not enough time, no team alignment. So usually, as Sabi mentioned, we really need to understand what are the goals. And this can be a 1-hour conversation with stakeholders and really understanding what are the long-term versus the short-term goals. And when we talk about the goals, it's not what's in the brand plan, but really what the budget holder has in terms of goals, what the organization has in terms of goal for the product. So here we have an example of an actual product that we're currently supporting. It's a phase 1. They have big aspiration for the asset. They're spending about $600,000 with us in a phase 1 product. The reality is then the next part. So this is what you're trying to achieve. This is where you are today. And really the magic happens, really understanding what are the roadblocks. Where do they see the roadblocks to achieve those goals? Because a lot of times we jump right into the kits and kicks, we jump right into what are the questions about the competition, but we don't spend enough time to really understand the stakeholders on what are the bigger goals, both at a personal level, at the product level, and at the organizational level. So if we really understand what are the roadblocks that they see to achieve those goals, and we position the projects to address those issues, then if you solve problems within pharma, usually the budget will show up for CI. So we started implementing, as I mentioned, with some of the stakeholders. The budget started going up, and now we're at a point that they ask us to come in-house and run these calls or these sessions, 90-minute sessions now with their cross-functional teams to get that alignment, to ensure that we know what the goals are, that we know what their issues are, and to really see how can we leverage competitive intelligence to address those issues. Okay, so imagine how do you feel that you are a trusted leader within an organization. It's happening to us as an external provider, that they come to you to get that directional clarity on exactly what they need to focus on. Because in this organization we're supporting, development is not talking to commercial. So they want to use this opportunity to bring those two teams together. Okay, so then how to increase your business impact? As I mentioned at the beginning, the whole value model starts with the why. Okay, and this is the part that really gets me excited because the presentations up to today, again, there were a lot of health presentations, a lot about activity type of presentations, and a lot of the discussion yesterday was about OCI is to support decision making. Okay, I think the issue that we have with the people in this room is that we have not really identified what is the value that competitive intelligence has. And I'm willing to bet the company that competitive intelligence today is the only way that a company can develop a winning strategy. So if you ask me what OCI is, I love competitive intelligence. I love the word CI. For me, it has opened doors with senior management, with the CEO of multinational corporations, because CI is about developing a winning strategy. It's not about decision making. It's not about reducing risk. It's really helping a team go from being a participant, an outsider, to really become a winning player. And if we're clear of the value that competitive intelligence brings to the table, they'll let you in to be part of that table. So we talk about the three hows: competitive intelligence, competitive readiness, and stakeholder engagement. And then the what is really, if you have those right conversation with the stakeholders and you have the predictive intelligence, you can tell the organization, this is where the opportunities are, this is what you need to focus on, and this is really what you need to execute on. If you have the predictive intelligence and you have the processes to process that information and to take action, then really brings the actionable insights. And then if you have the right processes and you have the right relationship with the people that you can influence the way they're thinking, then you have the exponential advantage, and that leads to the winning strategy. And for us, leveraging this model, we've been able to grow the Atacana team primarily working with the current clients. Okay, so this is in May 2022. We're still recruiting, so all you pharma people or people from the agency side that are interested in joining a high growth organization, then I'm happy to talk to you. Okay, so I want you to imagine you have seen the framework, you've seen a little bit how it's implemented. How would it feel to be here next year? You have twice the resources, you have had twice the double of the impact. Okay? We need to move away talking about the CI process. We really need to talk about what is the value that CI brings to the organization. So I want you to think about the last 2 days. There was a lot of great presentation. I think the only way that you make a difference in your organization, if you really think through what are you going to do, what are the 1, 2, 3 things, what's action you're going to take when you go back home. Right? Because 2 days here and you take no action, then we're going to be here in the same place next year. So again, we cannot cover everything in 30 minutes. We'll be uploading a workbook, so I can help you that way. At least you have something to work on that. And you can download it in competitiveintelligence.com/value. So thank you again for your time and for being here today.